This is a download from the BBC of the World Football Phone-In, which is broadcast as part of the Up All Night programme on 5 Live on Saturday mornings. Here's the latest edition.
In South America, in Rio, on our behalf, Tim Vickery, the legend Dino, is there. Tim, didn't hear you singing along there, by the way.
No, well, I've never set foot in Africa, so I can hardly be one of the real sounds of it, can I?
You're so cheeky. Andy Brassel, the top brass, the Line of Leon is in Leon, taking care of your European football questions. Good morning, Andy.
You right?
I suppose you're going to use that excuse as well, eh?
Sore throat, you know.
Yeah, okay. But Hiral Bat, our legendino here from Uxbridge, is in the studio with me to take your questions and comments on African football, and you sang with us. Doesn't it put you into the mood for a World Football Phone-In when you sing that?
Well, absolutely, but I probably shouldn't have said anything.
No, you should have, definitely. So, questions and comments, please, on African football, South American football, and European football, and indeed on players from over there playing in our leagues as well. Pick up the phone and give us a call from now on 0500 909 693. You can text us on 85058 or email upallnight@bbc.co.uk. And Andy, very quickly, I will tell you that a lot of people have been texting on the question of slavery. You know what I mean. We'll come to that in a minute. But first of all, email here that goes to, I suppose, both Hiral and Tim. It's from Liam in London, who sent an email saying, I think Arsene Wenger has been secretly listening to the football phone-in. Tim, do you know why?
No idea. Go on.
Because apparently it appears that finally Gilberto Silva is on his way out to Panathinaikos.
That's such a shame. I was so much looking forward to him being selected for the games against Tottenham.
Well, it's not over. Liam's email goes on. He says, I know it's not quite Tim's territory, but could you tell us how awful Emmanuel Ibue is?
Oh, that's very harsh. That's so harsh.
That's one for Hiral.
Yeah, go on, Hiral. Tell Arsene Wenger how horrible Emmanuel Ibue is.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about that is people have been sort of saying this over the last season because he hasn't had the greatest season, compared to a couple of years ago, and but he's still been picked. He's still played. He's had a few injury problems, which I think have slowed him down a little. But awful? No, I don't think so. Everyone's form can dip every now and then, but Eboué has proved he can play up and down that right flank. I'd back him.
But he's a hard nut, isn't he? He's your hard man. He's your Ron Harris, your Ron Chopper Harris. He is, isn't he?
Well, he's a football player as well. I mean, he's got great pace. He's got a real dribble on him. And people seem to forget that quite a lot of those crosses that set up Emmanuel Adebayor often started or were in fact played by Eboué coming in from the right. So I think that's very harsh, awful.
And talking about Emmanuel Adebayor, it's such a shame that I won't have the pleasure of saying his name too many more times in the Premiership. But Liam in London goes on to say, on a more serious note, is Colombian striker Falcao the replacement for Emmanuel Adebayor, or is he in the Eduardo mould?
Well, I think he's a terrific young player, a thoroughbred centre-forward Colombian who's come up the ranks with River Plate. He's the son of a defender. He's been named in tribute of a midfielder, the great Brazilian Falcao, and he's ended up a striker, a centre-forward. Cuts in on the diagonal very well, has got a prodigious leap. However, there's two words that I'd like to say to Arsenal supporters that perhaps might make them cool their jets on this one, and those two words are Diego Forlan. Now, Forlan, after leaving Old Trafford, has proved terrific player, wonderful scoring rate with Villarreal, with Atletico Madrid, with the Uruguayan national team. But that jump straight in from Argentinian league football to Man United, that was Arnhem. That was a bridge too far. And I'm worried a little bit for Falcao Garcia if he goes down the same road. He's had some injury problems. He had a long layoff with a knee injury. And also he does tend to pick up little niggling injuries and not sometimes last 90 minutes. So while I'm a great admirer of his, I think Arsenal at this stage is asking a lot for him. He hasn't really had a sequence of games, 10, 15, 20 games in a row for River Plate without getting a little niggling injury or something. So I think the physicality of the Premiership at this stage, it might be a little bit much for him. So if I was Arsene Wenger, I wouldn't buy Falcao Garcia at this stage, and I'd clearly not sell Gilberto Silva, but pick him just for the games against Tottenham so we can win.
Sean in Cambridge. By the way, you're losing Berbatov. I'll tell you more about that in a moment or two. Sean in Cambridge, good morning.
Good morning. How are you going, Dalton?
I'm very well, thanks very much. Yeah, you got a question?
Just a question for Tim. It's just about Australian football sort of going down the way of the Dutch way of playing, but there was a prominent Australian coach that actually said, well, maybe we should be going down the way of the way Brazilians play. And I was just wondering from Tim, could you take the way Brazilians play football and actually export it to a place like Australia, or is it only like the cultural, environmental facts that just produce the players that Brazil actually produce?
I think football is such a fascinating subject for this very reason, because it reflects culture, but also it's not like country dancing. You know, there's cross-fertilisation between different cultures, with coaches in different countries picking ideas off other cultures and so on. So there's always a kind of cross-fertilisation going on. In terms of following the Brazilian model at the moment, I think that would be a disaster, because that Brazilian model seems to have run out of steam for Brazil. A few years ago, they were world champions at senior level, at under-17 level, at under-20 level. They're not world champions at anything. They didn't get close in either of those three world championships, the last three. They didn't get close to the title, nor did they play particularly good football on any of those occasions. Brazil have had a model. They went 24 years without winning the World Cup, between 1970, the last one of World Cup, and in 1994. In that time, there was a lot of confusion from them. They were stunned by the Dutch in 74, really, really stunned them. And people talk about total football and how the Dutch are always changing positions in attack. And the thing that's often forgotten about the Dutch side in 74 is the incredible pressure that they put on the ball when the opposition were in possession. There's a photo that Brazilian coaches often refer to. There's one Brazilian player on the ball, and there's 9 Dutchmen rushing at him, trying to put pressure on him. Brazil had never seen anything like that before, and that knocked them out of their stride. They tried to copy the Dutch in 78. That didn't work. Went back to more romantic football in 82, 86. That didn't work. Tried to copy Italy with a sweeper and a back three system in 90. That didn't work. Then in 94, they hit upon this model that has been very successful for them. 4-4-2 with one deep-lying central midfielder, freeing the fullbacks to bomb forward. And initially very, very successful. But now that particular model, I think, is really, really showing its age. Mainly, I think, because the quality of the central two midfielders, and back in 94 it was Mauro Silva, who was a master at reading the game, and Dunga, who was a pretty good passer, a better passer than he was given credit for, who would knit the side together. I think the quality of those two defensive, the two central midfielders for Brazil has gone down and down and down now, until we've reached a stage where there is a converted centre-back like Gilberto Silva holding that position for Brazil. So to follow the Brazilian model at the moment for Australia or for anyone else, I think would be a huge mistake, because it's a model that Brazil are just themselves coming out of. In terms of Australia, I would be looking. I don't think they've done badly at all with that Dutch thing. I think Gus Hiddink did a remarkable job with the national team. I was there in Montevideo for that first leg of the playoff against Uruguay, and I loved the way he got them playing higher up the field. I think that was a terrific performance there in Montevideo in difficult circumstances. And so for me, for Australia, and the roots of Australian football are European. That's where the immigrant population that play football have largely come from. So I think probably the Dutch way is an easier way to assimilate and a more successful way forward for Australia than copying Brazil, especially at the moment when, as I say, that Brazil model looks dated and Brazil need a rethink.
Sean, thanks very much for the call. 0500 909 693 is our number. And Andy, very quickly, several of these text messages just going on about the slavery issue. I've got to be honest. I don't know how many more.
I'm not in favour of it.
Well, I didn't think you were. And I don't know how many other Portuguese footballers on 120 grand a week that you know of who are enslaved at the moment. But Liz says she'd be interested in hearing your views on Sepp Blatter's remarks. And aren't they contradictory, first of all, as well as insulting, curtailing the freedom of movement and comparing footballers to slaves? And Andy in Exeter says, should Sepp Blatter be removed now from his job following his stupid comments regarding clubs treating players like slaves, thus meaning that contracts and investments by clubs are worthless?
Well, Blatter's not going to get removed for it because, one, who would do it, and two, I think he's said much worse in his time. What's most remarkable to me about it is why he felt the need to say anything. It's just really not an issue for him to get involved with. I don't really understand why he has. Obviously, as one of the texts said there, it is completely contradictory when he is trying to push the 6+5 rule, which is against European law, and he's admitted it's against European law at the same time. Obviously, it's just a fatuous comment. If we think about it, players are of course in contract. Now you have the Webster law where they can give notice if they signed a contract before they were 28, and that they have a couple of years left. There's talk of Frank Lampard doing that. Paulo Assunção, the Brazilian-born Portuguese qualified midfielder, has just used that very law to move from Porto to Atletico Madrid. So clearly it's possible. And of course, the most blindingly obvious fact is 90% of transfers take place between ascending clubs for players who are in contract already. And if a club say they want to sell a player and that player decides he doesn't want to go, then he doesn't have to go. So no on all counts.
But Ronaldo is definitely going now, though, isn't he? He can't go back to Old Trafford after saying that he was enslaved there.
Well, he didn't actually say that.
Well, no, he agreed with Sepp Blatter, though, didn't he?
He said he was confronted with, what do you think of Sepp Blatter's comments that Man United should let you go? And he just said, yeah, I agree with them. So he's never actually come out and said, I'm a slave. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they did end up brokering something with Real Madrid, but equally I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed at United for at least another year. He's so much of the dialogue involving this situation has been completely hysterical and not really reflected the facts. The player himself has not really changed from his position in the last couple of years, which for the last couple of years he said yes, he would love to play for Real Madrid one day. Yes, he would prefer to live somewhere else than Manchester. Yes, he would prefer to live further south in Europe, closer to his mother. And those are things that he's all sticking to. But he's never said he wouldn't turn up for training. He's never threatened to boycott anything. He's just expressed a wish that he might like to move on. I think everything else has been blown up around that with the perception of his image, a lot of which has obviously grown from his perceived involvement with Wayne Rooney getting sent off in the 2006 World Cup. That's really stuck for a lot of people, especially non-Manchester United fans in the UK, I think. So, to be honest, there's very little movement on that front at the moment. Real Madrid do their usual tactic of basically getting a player to come out and admitting he would like to join the club, therefore creating an untenable situation where the club are forced to sell that player. Real Madrid would never meet a €100 million value for him or anything like that. That's absolutely out of the question. They don't have the means or the inclination to pay that sort of money. But of course, their usual tactics have far less a chance of working because it's against Manchester United, and these are the two biggest clubs in the world, which is why it's such an extraordinary situation and why it's such big news. But I think we all know that if Alex Ferguson really, really doesn't want to let someone go, he won't. All the big players that have left Old Trafford in the past it has been his will that has let them go, and that's clearly not the case in this case. I think Ronaldo's got a few more little annoying things to do to get Ferguson to the point where he really wants to sell him.
The Uxbridge Massive is back, says Dale. He asks, where's he been? We'll find out in a moment or two from Hiral here. The Uxbridge Massive takes care of all your questions on football in Africa, on the African continent, and indeed on players playing in Europe or in our leagues as well. So pick up the phone and talk to him. If African football is your thing and you want to find out more about it, 0500 909 693. The line of Leon there, taking questions and comments on European football, and of course the Wikipedia in South America. That's what they call him, you know. The Yankees call him that. Of course, we all have our Brazilian football shirt names here, even some of our callers, like we've got the Gent or the Gentino. Andrew in Blackheath, good morning.
Good morning, Dotton.
You're right, sir.
Thank you very much. And good morning, the experts. Now, Dotton, I've got a bit of news for you, and then I'd like to speak to the top brass, and then to the Legendino
Go
on
ahead,
Wikipedia. So, starting with you, Dalton, were you aware, and that on Facebook there's a site called World Soccer Phone-In?
Yes, I'm very aware of that, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
you know about it?
Yes, I do.
You haven't set it up, have you?
No. But it was set up by fans of this programme, absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Mark tells me there's some very complimentary comments about you and the Legendino and the top brass and so on. There's even one about me, he said. Apparently a chap from Australia said, it's nice to hear the gent again because I missed 1 week because I overslept. So there you are. I'm not getting too big-headed, but, I thought I'd tell you that.
No, absolutely. You're welcome to be a star on the Facebook site as well. And for those who don't know how to log on to it, it's Facebook World Football Phone-In.
That's it. Yeah. Right, now, a little word with Andy, if I may. Hi, Andy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm sorry you've got a bad throat. Now, listen, I very much admire and respect your knowledge of European football. I think it's great. Take it as a compliment. You come a very close second to the Legendino, but of course, he can't be bettered by anybody. He's a very close second as an expert.
We're all on the same side. We're all putting together. There's no
Andy, I
ranking here.
also have admired the last 2 weeks the way you've stood up to Dotton's bullying, trying to get you to name the 1966 England World Cup winning team. Well done for that.
Well,
What
you're trying to say, Andrew, is that he failed to name them, didn't
Yeah. Dotton, I can name them with my eyes closed if you want, but however...
he? Okay, close your eyes and name them.
Yeah, do you want me to name them?
Yeah, please, close your eyes. Close your
Gordon
eyes.
Banks, George Cohen, Ray Wilson, the two backs, Nobby Stiles, right half as it was then, Jack Charlton, Bobby Moore, Alan Ball, Roger Hunt, Bobby Charlton, Jeff Hurst, and Martin Peters. How's that?
Hooray!
Perfect.
But you didn't
And
give
I
us the
haven't read it
reserves.
off. It's come from my memory.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the reserves.
Well, the reserves, no, Greasy was one of them.
Of course.
I can't remember the others.
Okay. But you did mention Nobby Stars, didn't you?
I did.
Can't forget Nobby Stars.
Now, but I want to get back to Andy. So, Andy, great for that. However, you spoiled it all by saying something like this to our esteemed presenter. Something like it's as efficacious to have a thorough knowledge of the works of Jane Austen and to even write a dissertation. It shows great moral fibre and so on and so on. No, if this wasn't a family programme, I'd say which part of the anatomy of Dotas you've crawled up. For goodness sake, no more crawling, please. Not allowed. No, is that clear, Andy?
Well, I'll get back to you when I've returned Cristiano Ronaldo's copy of Northanger Abbey to him, of course.
Now, getting to reasonably serious things. Tim, hi.
Hello.
Tim, I was going to ask about Radamel Falcao, but someone beat me to it, except it's a famous name. Is he related to the Falcao who played about 20 years ago for Brazil?
No, well, he's Colombian, and his father, who was a centre-back,
Of course he's Colombian,
named him after Falcao as a tribute. So it's not he's not related, but it's not a coincidence. He's named after as a tribute to the great midfielder. If only Brazil could produce central midfielders like Falcao again.
Exactly. Yeah. Now the other thing, Blackburn, I read, are interested in an Ecuadorian midfielder called Segundo Castillo.
Right.
Anything about him? Would he make it in the Premiership?
I think without too many problems. He wouldn't be a star, but he'd do. He's a defensive midfielder.
Who does he play for now, Tim?
He plays for Red Star Belgrade in Serbia, and he's one of this generation of Ecuadorian footballers who are leaving to Europe, which is entirely new ground for Ecuadorian footballers. It's so new, this process. He had a terrific 2006 World Cup, doing the defensive midfield duties. There's no great class about him, but he's a physically dynamic player. Played exceptionally well against your lot, Andrew, in the first game of the World Cup for Ecuador against Poland.
Yeah, I remember that, but Poland was so useless,
Yeah, it was a terrible Performance by Poland. In what was practically a home game for them, and Ecuador's first competitive match ever in Europe, and Ecuador managed to win fairly comfortably. So that's where he came to the attention, I think, of the European clubs. He's physically strong, dynamic, not a lot of class, but he'll run around, put himself about, and do the defensive midfield work and allow the more talented players a little bit more freedom. So he's never going to be a star, but he's a player you could put him in the Blackburn side, and I think he'd do a hard-working job for them.
Thanks, Tim.
Andrew, thanks very much. Always a pleasure to hear from the gent. 0500 909 693 is a number to call if you'd like to join us for our World Football phone-in. And Damien in West Yorkshire and Cleo in Aldershot, would you both mind waiting till after the 5 Live News and Sport for your questions? Because you both want to talk about... You both want to talk about the same thing, which is about slavery, believe it or not. We'll come back to that in just a moment or two. Very quickly, though, from Kat in Battersea. And Andy, you listening carefully?
Yeah.
Right, what a load of rubbish about Ronaldo. If he doesn't leave, I'm a dog. That's from Kat in Battersea. He gets better, though. Peter in Southport says, just been listening to you chatting about Gilberto Silva. I think he should go back to his previous job as Roland Gift of the Fine Young Cabinet.
Then they'd have to change the words. It wouldn't be good thing wherever you've gone. It would be bad central midfielder wherever you've gone.
Well, that's a good one. Very good on the spot as well, without blinking. So, very quickly, Hiral, I have a question about an African player. What's happened to Julius Agahawa? He looked an outstanding prospect a few years ago. Seemed as though he was destined to be Nigeria's main attacking threat for the next decade. But now, is he even capable of playing for Wigan, is the question.
Well, I mean, he may be on his way, but Agahawa is an interesting case. Basically, he always had all the pace in the world. Such athleticism, everyone remembers his backflips and front flips.
Very good, very good.
But his problem always was he just lacked that finishing ability. It's a bit of a cliche, really, but when the time came for him to put away a chance that his pace would have created, he so often didn't do it, and that's one of the reasons why he's travelled around a bit. I think he's always found it difficult to sort of consistently score and sort of then nail down a place. It's a pity, really, because it's a waste of extraordinary natural talents. But I think he's still a decent pro, and he can still do a job wherever he is.
To Damien, first of all, though, in Geesley in West Yorkshire. Good morning, Damien.
I don't. It's Geisley.
I knew it was. I knew I was pronouncing it wrongly. It was one of those. Let me flick a coin, and I got tails, basically.
James Alexander Gordon got it wrong about 8 years ago when we were in the first round of the FA Cup. He did it Geesley as well. So you're not the first.
I feel fine now.
I just want to have a word about Ronaldo. It galls me and it upsets me that him and Sepp Blatter are referring to the word slave. He's on however many hundreds of thousands of pounds a week already with Manchester United. How he can possibly refer to himself as a slave when he signed a 5-year deal with the club. I think it was an extension during the last season.
But although, to be fair, Damien, as we've heard from Andy already, he didn't actually say that he was a slave. Sepp Blatter did.
I understand that. No, you're right. You're exactly right. But for the likes of Sepp Blatter to come out and say what he said, I read a book called Foul by a chap called Andrew Jennings, who's a sports journalist. He wrote for The Guardian and many other papers. And having read that book, I don't know how Mr. Sepp Blatter can possibly be in charge of the likes of FIFA, because he's a crook. He's a crook.
No, you can't say that. No, you cannot say that.
That's
no, you cannot say, Damien, you can't say that. We can't allow that kind of language about him, because that's a criminal allegation right there. And he's not, to be frank. You might not like the way he is, but we can't... I mean, you don't know him, and you don't have any proof of anything he's done wrong. But I agree, his statements are out of order, but that's not the right phrase to use about him.
But he is getting involved in something that has got nothing really to do with FIFA. Cristiano Ronaldo is a paid employee of Manchester United. and for him to get involved in that is wrong, because Cristiano Ronaldo it's not as if he's a free agent or anything like that. He's a paid employee of Manchester United. And why Mr. Sepp Blatter is getting involved in it, well, I don't know. He has a reputation for being someone who likes to...
controversial, wind things up, stir it up, if you like. But,
Yeah.
But maybe Andy can help there. Andy, what kind of a man is Sepp Blatter? And why does he want to get involved in this kind of thing that doesn't even concern him?
I've absolutely no idea. I can't really see what advantage it does his own political aims either. To be perfectly honest, I'd agree on virtually all those points.
Yeah, but there is an agenda, though, isn't there? I mean, he was doing it either to wind up Manchester United or to pamper and soften up Real Madrid.
I don't think so. I just think it's one of those things where the leaders of football want to be on the side of the biggest player in the world, wherever he should end up, and it is that simple, really. But like I said, I think when you cut through all the speculation, there's very little going on there at the moment.
Oh,
what Sepp Blatter said has nothing to do with the reality of the situation. As our caller says, he's got no way of influencing it. It's uncalled for, but it's really quite irrelevant.
Damien, thanks a lot for the call. Cleo in Aldershot, and appreciate you waiting patiently.
Yes. I've got a question for Andy and a question for Tim. Andy, I know he should win the foot in mouth competition, really. It's not the first time he said something out of place. I remember a couple of years ago, he said about women's football making it sexier. They should wear clothes like they're wearing volleyball. He talked about moving the African Nations Cup to the middle of the wet season. He's not in touch with reality, I'm sure he isn't. He just says these controversial things, mainly, I think, for the publicity, and see how much he can stir up about. I'm sure he's not for English League in any case. Anything he has to put down the English League, he will do. And I just feel that his comments are totally out of place and totally inappropriate.
Has he got it in for the English Premiership, Andy?
I don't know about that. I think he's there's possibly something in the fact that it's a huge coup of marketing that he's got no control of or no hand in. I think a lot of people say the same thing about Michel Platini. At least in the case of Platini, it's on his patch. It directly affects him. He feels it affects the balance of the Champions League. So whether you agree or disagree that something needs to be done to change the balance of the way things are. The way England is dominating European football on the back of, as Platini says, lots of debt, which is not allowed or acceptable in other leagues or countries, is neither here nor there, because it's nothing to do with Blatter. It's absolutely nothing to do with him, as Cleo says.
I have a question for Tim. The Olympic squad for Brazil and Argentina have been announced. There's two omissions, I think, in Argentina's squad, Morales and Gonzalo Higuain. But Ronaldo has been picked. But Barcelona won't let him go. But surely there's some FIFA ruling on who they should let go and who they shouldn't.
Well, this has been so chaotic, and it will continue to be chaotic. And I think we have to have a think about the whole Olympic competition and where it fits into the global calendar. The ruling is, as Blatter made clear yesterday, the sides can take 3 overage players, and that's players born before 1985. Now, those players born 1985 and after, the clubs are obliged to release. That's so it's very unfortunate for the players who are based in Germany or someone whose season kicks off earlier than say Spain or Italy. So it's unfortunate for them, and for say German clubs with important games coming up, you can understand why they're not entirely happy. But for those players, the 3 overage players, there is no obligation on the clubs to release, which makes me wonder in Liverpool why Liverpool are agreeing to release Javier Mascherano, as they seem to be. They don't have to release him. He's born in '84. He's one of Argentina's 3 overage players. Now, the situation with Ronaldinho is very strange because he's been selected by Brazil, which in itself is controversial because it seemed very much as if he was picked by the president of the Brazilian FA rather than by Dunga, the coach. It was the president of the Brazilian FA who announced that Ronaldinho would be picked. It certainly goes against Dunga's philosophy that places have to be won on merit because Ronaldinho hasn't been playing and therefore can't win his place on merit. The great Tostão, the 1970 great, now Brazil's best football writer, he thinks this is all to do with the commercial interests of Brazil and their sponsors wanting a star name there. But Barcelona have said they don't want to release him, which seems quite a strange position from Barcelona because on the one hand Barcelona say they don't want him anymore. On the other hand, they say they won't release him. Now, surely, if they don't want him, let him go to the Olympics. He's got a while there to get himself fit. He's working, at the moment, he's working hard to try and get himself fit with one of Brazil's physical preparation specialists. Surely, has a good Olympics, does well, he's back in the shop window, his price goes up, and it's maybe more likely that someone comes in and buys him. So it's a strange situation. Ronaldinho says himself that although Barcelona have said that they won't release him, he thinks that this can all be smoothed over. I think there are some political administrative problems for the president there at Barcelona. I'll pass this one across to Andy Brassel. How do you see this one panning out? Do you think Barcelona are coherent in not wanting to release him? Do you think he has any future in Barcelona? How do you think that's going to pan out with Ronaldinho?
Well, I think Tim, you're right in that there are a lot of advantages to letting him go and getting himself back in some sort of decent shape and confidence. So at least he becomes a saleable asset. But I guess the fact that they're looking to ditch him has had some sort of influence on that. They don't want to put the block on any sort of negotiations which may lead to him leaving the club before August 31st. So I guess they want him to be in Barcelona. So in whatever shape, he will leave the club and bring some money in. I mean, of course, they're only really look to contenders: Manchester City, who have the money, and Milan, who have the pulling power. And they of course, really want Ronaldinho. He would really like to go there. So it's just a case of, as is often the case in deals between two such huge clubs, of them working out a solution that allows them both to leave the other side of it with their pride intact. I suppose the interesting thing about both those deals is neither of them rely on Ronaldinho's particular fitness. So whether he eats 4 burgers a day for the rest of the summer, or whether he gets back in great shape and looks fit and raring to go, those will probably remain the only two clubs interested in him. I guess another possibility is if he were to come back from the Olympic Games injured, that would really impact negatively on Barcelona. But all the political trouble going on at Barcelona at the moment, all the pressure on Joan Laporta to resign, a lot of it has come from one of the previous board members, Sandro Rosell, who was on the Laporta board when he took over at Barcelona 4 or 5 years ago now, him saying a lot of the criticism from the supporters and from rival groups who would want to take over the club is the fact that when they won the European Cup in 2006, Deco, Eto'o and Ronaldinho were worth a combined 150 million euros minimum, whereas now maybe 50 million for the lot. Of course, Deco's already gone off to Chelsea for just 10 million euros, which I think will probably turn out to be one of the bargains of next season. So effectively, Laporta's lost 100 million euros in 2 years.
While we're on Barcelona, can I bring in Hirao here? Because Hirao has carried the banner wherever he's gone for Samuel Eto'o. And Hirao, what on earth happened to him in those Champions League semi-final games against Manchester United? And he looked like he'd never played football in his life before. We all know he's a fantastic player. What on earth was the matter with him in those games, Hirao? Yeah,
it's a very interesting point. I mean, I can't really answer that. To be honest, it's been a very, very strange... ever since he damaged that meniscus in his knee, he's had a sort of an up and down type of run. I mean, he scored when he's returned, and Barcelona have somewhat struggled when he's not been there. But I don't think he's ever really felt as comfortable as he felt when him and Ronaldinho and Deco and Xavi were all playing that great football, and he helped them win the 2 league titles and the Champions League. It was one of those. I mean, to be fair, he had a similar sort of problem in the African Nations Cup final, where he looked like all that creativity, all that intellectual aspect of his game just dissipated into nothing. So I mean, what he really needs is to go to a club, a new club, somewhere fresh, where he can almost start from the scratch again, under a manager who knows how to play him, and basically rediscover the form that made him, in my opinion, the best striker in the world. Beyond that, it's difficult to know what will happen, because I mean, obviously Pep Guardiola has done the same with Samuel Eto'o regarding the Olympics. So it obviously seems to be some sort of policy that Barcelona have, as Andy has mentioned. I think Eto'o's main problem at the moment is that his rhythm has been interrupted, and when that can happen to any footballer, and it'll inevitably cause them problems. It would be nice to see him go somewhere big, because he's still a young player, and he still has plenty of time to show everybody what he has already done in the past.
0500 909 693. If you'd like to join us on the World Football Phone-In, talking African, European and South American football, and sometimes they all go together, as you can hear. Anytime Hiral is on, says Mark in Coventry, it's always a great footy programme, and this will be a classic, no doubt, as well. So can your African fella, that's you, Hiral, can your African fella tell me anything about 2 clubs I read about in the 50s, the Mysterious Dwarves and the Venomous Vipers? That's from Foodiebo in Rotherham.
Oh, I'm afraid I can't. That sounds like something interesting that would definitely be need to.
Yeah, the Mysterious Dwarves. I think they've got a low centre of gravity, those Mysterious Dwarves. Incidentally, talking about low centre of gravity, Glenn in Northern Ireland says, I was looking to know where I could watch Tim's documentary, Brazil, How Africa Won the World Cup. I managed to see part 1, all of 7 minutes of it. I was looking to know where I could get my hands on the rest. Well, yeah, you're going to have to Google around for that one, mate. Yeah, I'm tempted to tell you, but no, go and look for it on the internet, and I think you'll get more.
Yeah, I think the website is called Colour Telly. Is it www.colortelly.com? Is that it? And it's the initiative of a certain Dotun Adebayo who's blushing now. He's reluctant to push himself.
Leave it. Anyway, so we're talking about... you've embarrassed me now, I'll tell you that. Surely if Hiral's an accountant by day, his radio name should be the African Abacus, as Shawnee York.
Oh, yes.
Also, let's have a Brazilian Jonathan Woodgate from Tim. Go on, Tim. You know it's popular. Everybody loves it.
Yeah, well, I don't know why this is so popular. I just knew when I was watching the Carling Cup final, and I knew that he was going to score the winning goal, because it's the player whose pronunciation is most funny. So I'm going to give it the full go. I'm going to give it the Woodgate's just scored the goal of that's won the title for Tottenham, if I may, which was something like Eli Uxbridge com o gol do título de Tottenham. Uxbridge.
It kills me every time, I'm telling you.
That's even better than the Brazilian pronunciation of Wright Phillips.
So hang on, what's the Brazilian pronunciation?
No, well, my favourite one of this was the then Paraguay manager who I spoke to shortly before the 2006 World Cup, and he was going through with me some of the possible English squad that was going to face his Paraguay side in that first game, and the one that you just couldn't do was Wright Phillips, which came out of the mouth of Anibal Ruiz or something like Rai Pili.
I'm sorry. So how do they pronounce Tim Vickery?
Usually Vickery. But I'm not proud. I'll even answer when I'm in a good mood. I'll even answer to Tildo.
Okay, this is really a football phone. So let's get back onto the football. From Gary Nottingham, what are Malawi's chances of qualifying for the next round of qualifying for the African Nations Cup?
Ooh, not too great, I would think. I mean, Malawi, an interesting team. They had an English coach for quite a long time. And they have got a pretty exciting goalkeeper in Kapuza, who I think, if he wasn't from Malawi, might actually make it to Europe and play in one of the leagues over here. But I think the problem that Malawi will have is sort of sustaining qualification run, which is something that always affects some of the smaller nations, especially when they make some of the trips to the bigger nations. Playing away is always difficult. But of course, it would be nice to see a team like Malawi and make it to the Nations Cup, because these teams that appear after many years or for the first time always bring a good flavour to the tournament. For example, Benin recently.
Edmund in Vauxhall, good morning.
Good morning, Dalton. It's a very long time.
Absolutely. Welcome back to the football phone.
Yeah, I'm fully healed now.
Oh, right. You've been out with a long-term injury, have you?
Yeah.
Well, as long as it was a footballing injury, well, you can talk.
All right, okay. Good morning to Tim, what's his name? Andy Brasso.
What's his name?
Yeah, because I've always been having an argument with him, so I don't want to remember his name.
Okay.
He doesn't support Liverpool, obviously.
Of course not. And many of us don't. You'll be surprised.
But you're a Chelsea fan, I can live with that. Question that one of our callers asked about mysterious dwarfs and venomous vipers. Both clubs are from Ghana.
Ah.
Yeah. With regards to the names, basically, vipers, it's formed by, we've got these mysterious myths about animals in Africa.
Mm.
Yeah, so there was a hunter who basically came across a viper who bite him, and basically he came home and then he got healed, and then he formed a club. So they named the club after that.
The venomous vipers.
Yeah, but with the droughts, I don't have too much facts on that, but it's all part of the myth. But there were two clubs that were in existence some few years ago, I think in the 80s and early part of the 90s. I don't know whether they're still around.
But can you tell us whether the dwarves were vertically challenged or not?
Sorry?
Can you tell us whether the dwarves had a low sense of gravity or not?
Oh, no. It's got nothing to do. They didn't have very tall players. So that had to do with and they were very good. Those days they were really, really good. So because of their height and the size of the opponents that they were playing against, they got the name mysterious dwarfs and venomous vipers. But the vipers was formed by the snake biting, and then the dwarfs was by the players being actually like Tim has always been saying, low center of gravity.
Fantastic that you were able to tell us about it, though, Edmund.
That's fine. My question to Tim is, how good is Diego Cavalieri and Jonas Gutierrez, who signed for Newcastle? And also, I just want to pose a question to the board. With this limit to clubs having 6-5 players, 6 from the national side and 5 from the other countries. With Sepp Blatter have said the same thing. If the likes of Pele, Santos, and the great Socrates and all those past Brazilian players and Argentine players have come to, places like England, the Dutch league or the Italian league, would he have said anything like that? Because, places like Africa look up to the clubs in England because we've got access to it in Africa, and they've been having lots of opportunities to watch some of these great players in the past. And the great players that are coming up like Messi, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Robinho, and they look up to them and they base their football on that. But if he should say that they're going to limit the players, and it doesn't hold any water, so they should just allow them to play their way. Clubs can go for as many foreign players as they like, so far as it's going to improve the play of the club and also make the fans happy and win trophies. In my opinion, I don't have anything to do with it, but because I live in England, I want England to do very well. So I'm just posing this question whether the panel agrees to it or not.
Let's go around the table. Andy.
Edmund, I think dead right. I think you're dead right. And of course, the irony of the whole situation is if, which obviously it's hypothetical because it will never happen because it's against European law, as we said. But if the 6+5 were to happen, all it would do is accentuate the current situation where young players are brought over earlier and earlier because they're players who either need to be the six are either players who need to be born in the country or need to have played for a continuous 3-year period before they're 18 years old. So all it would mean is foreign players brought over younger and younger, which is not always the best thing for their development. I mean, I know that's something that Tim's concerned over, like players moving abroad too young. So I don't think it even would be of great benefit to the game as a whole.
Hero?
Oh, well, I mean, I would agree as well. I think the fact that it'll never come into play is perhaps most important. But, there's almost two lines of argument. One, people say that if you have quotas, it'll leave more space for younger players of the local country to come through. But I think it's equally possible to say that if you have quotas, those younger players who might be of lesser talent level won't face the competition that they would have if you had an open market. And so you ultimately end up having a national team with players of a lower quality. So, I mean, you can't prove it one way or the other. And the open market system that we have here in England has, allowed this league to become the great league that it is. So why would anyone want to really change that?
And Tim, I presume that you agree with what's been said.
Yeah, well, I think there are all, as Andy said, with bringing the players over earlier, there are always kind of loopholes and ways around it. And it would be a fantastic boom to the forged passport industry in South America. We've just had today 15 people arrested in Argentina with it looks like connected with a forged document scandal. Italian consulate, perhaps, with getting players with EC passports and then getting them to Europe. It's a boon to that kind of industry.
You've been listening to a download of the World Football Phone-In from Up All Night at BBC Radio 5 Live. You can put your questions live on Saturday mornings from 2:30am to 4am, or you can email us at upallnight@bbc.co.uk. That's upallnight, all one word, @bbc.co.uk.